What is already pretending here, back with another Honkai style guide, and today I'm here with the should you or should you not summon for the 3.2 second half character being Anaxa. So the way this video is going to work is first I'm going to be talking about him, going over his kit briefly, talking about why he's a really strong unit. Then I'll be giving over some pros and cons, which cons are really hard to come by on this character because there's not really anything wrong with him. And then I'll be talking about reasons why you should summon and then reasons why you shouldn't summon. So if you're on the fence on whether you should or should not summon, this video is for you. Before I get into the video, if you guys found this video helpful in any way, shape, or form, drop a good like would be greatly appreciated. If you're new or haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell icon for future videos like this along with all other types of style content and guides, and let's get straight into the video. So first, what makes Anaxa this really strong character? So he is both a main DPS potential character and also a sub DPS potential character. Pretty hard to come by one of those. Usually one is designed to be purely a hyper carry and not really a sub DPS, but Anaxa is one of the cases where you can do either or. He is the best sub DPS for the Herda and is also a good sub DPS on dual DPS teams if you want to run those, while also being a absolute perfect beast for running a hyper carry character. You know, pair him alongside Tribi with a -1 speed Sunday and then your sustain, or even if you want to do sustainless. He has the kit to implant every single weakness in the game onto your enemies, which is really good, and when you do have 5 or more weaknesses on the enemy, you put him into a certain debuff called Qualitative Disclosure, which makes them take 30% more damage by Anaxa. And anytime you do use a basic attack or skill on these guys that do have Qualitative Disclosure, you get a second skill for absolutely free that consumes no skill points. That is up to 4 skills on a -1 speed setup, by the way. You can have these on, you can use your skill, you get the free skill, you have the Sunday action forward, and then you get a skill and another free skill. That is insane damage output you can get as a main DPS, and just having the two as a sub DPS is still really good because his damage is really good and consistent. Him being able to implant every single weakness in the game will help your main DPS if you are running him as a sub DPS as well, just so they actually can do toughest damage to them. You can also run him with a dual erudition that is not the Herda, so you can run maybe Anaxa with a Jade setup where now you actually have full effect of his trace, which is now giving everyone 50% damage as well. You can easily make up for that if you're running him as a hyper carry with another Harmony support as well. You don't have to use that. And if you are running him with the Herda, which most people will do because he is the best sub DPS erudition character to run with her now, she is also going to be getting that 50% damage out that Anaxa does give to make her do even more damage. On top of that, his ultimate is fully AoE, which we know how much this game does love AoEs. His ultimate also does implant every single weakness at the same time. You know, with this talent, and every time you do hit them, you implant one. So it's a bit slower when you are hitting them, but with this ultimate, you're able to implant all the weaknesses at once. His skill is also actually a bounce skill, meaning it can actually hit everyone. It's going to be a bit iffy, you know, bounce, we know how that usually goes. It does obviously prioritize the enemies that have not been hit, but it being bounce speeds, it has pretty good damage potential overall in AoE scenarios. It does really good. It could get a bit annoying when you want to do more damage to one enemy, but then you get a bit unlucky with the bounce. But it's still really good, and when you get bounce on a single target character, especially on Anaxa, it is absolutely insane the damage he can do. His AoE damage is really high, and his single target damage is really high as well. So he has the actual best of both worlds there. So yeah, that practically is what he does have going for him, and that's why he's so strong. He works fantastic as a main DPS and a sub DPS. He has the ability to implant every single weakness that can help him and your other DPS or anyone on your team that does damage. He's able to give free skill usages once you do have 5 weaknesses on the enemy. Meaning, if you are running him with the Herda, you do need skill points, you can actually basic with him and you still get that free skill proc. If you run an erudition character, you're able to buff the team rather than just himself. He also does give him a free 140% crit damage just unconditionally once you do have that trace, by the way. And yeah, having just really good damage output that is also very consistent, fully AoE ultimate, balanced skill, does really good damage in AoE scenarios and insane damage in single target scenarios. He does have a lot going for him that makes him super strong. Now for some pros and cons for Anaxa. As I already mentioned, he works as a main DPS and a sub DPS, which is going to be great if you don't want to actually focus on his main DPS side. You can run him with the Herda, he is the best there. You can run him with other dual DPS setup teams. He is relatively flexible due to the fact that he just does really good damage, and on top of that implants every single weakness in the game. That will help any DPS you are running because they will have their weakness implanted onto those enemies. On top of that, he can be relatively skill point positive if you don't spam skill. You want to spam skill, he usually will overall be SP, neutral, or negative because spamming skill is going to be the best for his damage. But if you really need the case where you just use the basic deck, you know, his ultimate implants every weakness, so you're going to be able to get the free skill every time with his actual talent proc. and that will allow you to use basic attacks because the extra skill does not consume any skill points, it is just free damage. So you have flexibility in his actual playstyle. Really good damage output regardless of the main or sub DPS, so wheeling down enemies and killing enemies will be a lot easier with him. Another pro that also makes him even stronger in this case is if targets actually don't have any control res, they straight up cannot move in his ultimate sublimation state. So when you do use his ultimate, you inflict everyone with sublimation, and if they don't have control res, they straight up cannot move, which will make it to where your team is more safe. You can do sustainless setups with him, since obviously if they can't move, they can't attack you, which is going to be good. So that's another pro to help you if you want to do sustainless stuff, or you just want to be more safer, or you have a weaker sustain on your account, and so on. For some cons, there really isn't many cons. The only cons I could really say are if you do want to make use of his full trace as a main DPS for the erudition buff, usually you will not be getting that extra 50% damage up because as a main hyper carry, you can very much run someone like Jade with him. But the thing is, he is much better off just running another Harmony character instead, since their buffs are just better than the actual 50% damage down. Like, that actual part of the trace is just one Robin skill. So a lot of times as a main DPS, you will actually not be able to make use of that full time. If you're running him as a sub DPS, it's usually going to be with the Herda or maybe even another erudition character. So in those cases, it's not an issue, but as a main DPS, you won't ever really have full use of it. Another thing is he can be a bit iffy and a bit tricky to build. He does have multitudes of ways to build, but getting these stat requirements can be a bit of an issue. Thankfully, you don't have to focus so much on crit damage because he gives himself a big 140% increase, but you still want to get good rolls. He doesn't really have a Lycon from his best free-to-play option or his signature to give him any crit stats, so that makes it a bit difficult. He does get some crit rate from his trace, but that's about it. But if you want to do a setup of getting him to 102 speed with the Eagle set, that's an option. It might be difficult for some players to actually set the stuff up because you need certain speed rolls. If you want to get him to something like breakpoint speed or a higher speed breakpoint, that is also a bit difficult because he has a lower sided speed value for his base speed, and he also doesn't get any speed from his base traces. So hitting higher speed thresholds may be a bit iffy, and in this time and age, 134 is still good, but you usually want to push for a higher breakpoint. But again, it's still relatively difficult because he has lower speed. And then when it comes time to selecting which actual relics that you want to do, a lot of players might be a bit confused. But that is something you can definitely solve by just watching a build guide. And now, talking about reasons why you should actually summon for Anaxa. So if you're in need of just a DPS in general, I don't even have to say win DPS because he just implants every weakness, so it really doesn't matter. He is going to be fantastic, and if you actually have the Herda and you are considering Anaxa, he is a good actual increase. Let's say you don't have Jade, so you're running someone like Serval or 4-star Herda. Anaxa is actually a pretty big upgrade in that sense. Not only does he make Herda do more damage, he does really good damage, and on top of that is making Herda always do that actual toughness damage because he implants every weakness, which includes ice. So if you need a sub DPS for that, fantastic option. If you want a new main DPS, he's going to be fantastic performing in that sense as well. All three modes, he's going to be super strong. If you want a sub DPS for some setups that can mainly help the other DPS do more damage because, you know, he can implant every weakness and such, he is pretty good on a actual dual DPS setup. It obviously depends on which character you're doing. Like, you obviously don't want to use him with someone that's something like an HP drainer. Usually those slots have something reserved. He may not always be the best, but he'll always be good as he's able to implant every weakness, do really good damage himself, and is also very consistent himself. So if you're in need of a general sub DPS for your teams, if you have certain setups that you want to do, if you are using the Herda but you don't have someone like Jade, so you're using the 4-star Herda, Serval, Argenti and such, and then again, if you just really want a big, good, shiny main DPS, then he is going to be a really strong option to consider. Especially because as a main DPS, he is just so strong. As a sub DPS with the Herda, he is the best. And on other teams where you can run a dual DPS setup, he may not always be the best. Like, maybe there's always going to be a better option of running just a different Harmony to buff the other DPS. He still will be a good slot in because he is implanting every single weakness. So if your other DPS doesn't have the weakness on the enemies, now they do. On top of that, he's doing really good damage himself, which can make up for the fact that you don't have a Harmony support to buff the other character more, since he is performing really good damage at the same time. And now when it comes to reasons why you shouldn't summon, it's practically the opposite reasons of why you should. If you don't really need a main DPS, so you already have your set teams, maybe you already have a team built around Castris, And then your second team, maybe you already have a team built around someone like Feixiao, and you already have them for your set modes. You know, you really just need 2 teams for the modes. Variety is nice, but if you really don't need that other main DPS because you already have your setups, then there won't be a point for his main DPS. And if you don't have the Herda and you don't really need a sub DPS in that case, because you know who are you really doing it for, then you don't obviously need to get him because you don't have the Herda, so you're not really building the team around her. And then the other scenario is if you do have the Herda and you specifically have Jade, and you maybe lower side pulls where you maybe want to save it for someone else, but you want to get Anaxa because it's kind of like best for your Herda, then in that case I would still hold off just because Jade is the other best character you can use with her. Anaxa is still better, but it's not to the point where Anaxa is so much better than Jade. Jade is still very, very good. Same with other air editions to be fair, but Jade specifically, she is still just really good, and the difference is not super high, especially because Jade gives additional damage as well. The speed, which can help you do some speed shenanigans, having the consistent follow-up attacks that you could do, also good damage, fully AoE as well. The upgrade from Jade to Anaxa is still noticeable, but it's not going to be something that you would die over. So if you already don't have your need of a main DPS and you already have Jade for your Herda, then obviously you don't really need Anaxa. And then if you have no other team where you really want to run him as a sub DPS because you wouldn't fit, maybe you don't really have a team set up where anyone would benefit from that. So let's say your main focuses are these teams that just want that pure main DPS just to be fully supported, and you already had that set up, then obviously you don't really need in for a less optimal but could be better in some cases sub DPS. And in those cases, feel free to skip. But yeah, that is the video. That is the should you summon or should you not summon for Anaxa. Hope you guys found the video helpful. If you did, drop a like, if you greatly appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn the bell icon for future videos like this, along with all the types of Star Wars content and guides. I'll see you later. Peace out.